Hello and welcome to Taboo Talk, the podcast brought to you by Boots that asks the seriously awkward health and wellness questions so you don't have to. I'm your host, Vogue Williams, and today we're talking about self-pleasure as a form of self-love. Believe it or not, a shocking statistic from a new report reported that on average 21% of those surveyed said they strongly agree or somewhat agree that masturbation is shameful or wrong. The taboo is more prevalent among younger women, with a quarter, 25% of women aged 18 to 34 seeing it as shameful, compared to only 15% of 45 to 55 year olds. Women's health is still riddled with misconceptions and myths, and it's affecting the way women see their own bodies. Joining me today are two amazing guests. First up, it's Ruby Rare. Ruby is an award-winning sex and relationship educator, ambassador for UK's leading sexual health charity, Brooke, and a body positivity advocate. Ruby Rare is a resident sexpert on E4's Sex Rated. She's an author of Sex Ed, a guide for adults, and host of a podcast series, In Touch. She actively promotes spaces to learn, celebrate, and embrace sex positivity and inclusion. She's also worked with various sex toy brands, including Vush, Lowand, and Lilo. She travelled the States earlier this year on a Climax tour with Lilo. We also have Nellie London, a body acceptance content creator and eating disorder recovery advocate on social media. Despite the backlash she faced for promoting masturbation in 2022, she collaborated with the famous sex toy brand Vush to release her successful line of rabbit vibrators. She's also an advocate of sex positivity and explores the link between self-love, self-acceptance, and self-pleasure. Right, let's get started with an icebreaker. Hands up who's masturbated this week. Okay, so we've just heard the stats. What are your thoughts around the stigma around self-love? I can't believe those stats.
Yeah. I can.
Can you?
It doesn't surprise me. I feel like you'd be better, but...
Well, I feel sad about them, but I'm not surprised by them. I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that as we move forwards, that stat's going to get less and less.
The weirdest part of the stats for me are that it's 25% of women aged 18 to 34 seeing it as shameful, and only 15% of 45 to 55. I would have thought that would have been flipped.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Because it's the older generation. I feel like my mum, my grandma, they're the ones who are like, don't talk about it. Shh.
Yeah, surely they're all doing it. Come on.
Well, obviously.
They have to be doing it.
But it's also about, like, whenever we talk about younger people, we've got to think about the environment that they've grown up in and what they've inherited from generations beyond them. So hopefully the people who are older in these statistics might have formed a bit more of their own path and had a bit of time to shed that inherited shame and messaging.
Yeah.
Whereas when we're younger, you're just bombarded with this. And I think especially for women, there's no, just think about how gendered it is, the idea of self-pleasure and masturbation as teenagers. Like what boys are taught is acceptable versus what girls are taught. For boys, it's this funny thing, you joke about it. There's like a month where it's November where you're like, where people compete to see how long they can not wank for.
What?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
No Fap November.
No what? There's no wanking in November.
No Fap November. When I used to go into schools and teach, there would be all of these jokes about that, and then all of the girls in the classroom, it would be denying it, of being like, oh no, I don't do that. I would never do that, because it's not encouraged.
I have a question then. Who has done it this week?
Obviously. Literally, perhaps.
You two.
Hey, full house.
Go on. That is so. I never knew that, because I thought kids would have been more like. I have a real thing around porn, which is a different conversation, that like I would have been worried about like children growing up and how they view porn and how they view sex and everything. So I would have assumed that they would have been masturbating more. But I actually, until we decided to do this pod, I didn't realise that so many people thought it was shameful, because I chat about it on my other podcast and like we laugh about it and joke about it, and like the running joke is that I always have my hands down my pants. I just didn't know that there was like shame still around it.
Do you get rubbish comments and people saying weird things to you because you say that?
No. I put it down as my co-host is like, Vogue pause away herself is what she says. And no, I've never had a negative comment at all.
But I kind of love that you're talking about it with just zero shame, because there's no room for someone maybe to come at you because you're just like, I don't care, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Whereas for lots of people, there's still so much nervousness about having those initial conversations, just bringing it up as something casual that happens.
Yeah.
And I wish we could all do that a bit more, but it takes time.
I suppose that's why we're having conversations like this. I'm just shocked that like the stats are the way they are. I just think people should be more. That's why I love that we're having this conversation. I think it needs to happen, and people like stop the shame around it.
Yeah. The shame is so inherent. Like,
Yeah.
the second we learn, especially as women, about masturbation, there was shame attached.
Yeah.
Instantly. No one needed to say to us, by the way, this is really shameful. It was just there.
Yeah.
We all knew. We didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it with our friends. Definitely not our family. The boys could talk about it and laugh and joke about it, but not us. That's for a different classroom. So the shame is there. But as adults, I feel like we can learn to push past it and let go of some of that shame, all of that shame.
But it takes time for that shame to melt away as well. And I think we've all got to talk about it more. But I also don't want anyone listening to this to feel pressure that they have to change their mindset immediately.
Yeah.
Because sex positivity and all of these conversations, we believe there's like loads of goodness in them, but I don't want that to add any extra pressure onto anyone of them being like, oh God, well now I've got to be masturbating all the time and I've got to feel okay in my body and learn all this stuff and have sex toys. Like it's very much go at your own pace.
Yeah.
And I want all of us to feel more comfortable having conversations wherever we're at, even if it's going like, I don't know about any of this and I feel shame and I feel nervous.
When did you first discover self-love? Like what age would you have been? I'm trying to think. I think I was in secondary school for sure.
How old is that? Secondary school?
12 and up.
Yeah.
I can't remember when, but I remember just not knowing what to do about it. And had no idea like masturbation was not a thing. It was just like a weird thing I was stuck with. And there was nowhere for it to go or do. You just
How did you figure it out though? What age would you have
I think
been?
a lot older.
Yeah.
Like when you start to get taught it and like we'd call it PSHE. So
you got taught about masturbation in
we
school?
got told about like
I didn't.
urges and like I think that's all I remember is urges, not masturbation.
Well, you get a lot of people get taught about wet dreams for boys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then just
Remember
periods for
that.
girls.
Yeah,
We get
yeah.
periods, great,
Get
we'll just deal with
periods and
that.
sore boobs and wide hips, and you're going to get hairy, but nothing
Yeah.
about sexual urges.
Nothing
that are
about
gonna,
pleasure
No.
or fun or exploration.
Nothing.
Which is always, I think people can get a bit nervous talking about that stuff with teenagers. It's not about instructing someone or telling someone what to do,
Yeah.
but just when we're talking about bodies and puberty and intimacy, it's bringing pleasure into the conversation, just saying, and this is something that has the potential to be exploratory and fun. And you
can try at
you can
home.
find that out.
It was just fear. I remember there was a lot of like, don't get pregnant.
Oh, there was so
That
don't
was
get
it.
pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah. But like speaking about like my mum gave me a book, like the most stupid book ever, and that was it. I was just dumped with this book. But like I've 3 young kids and do I teach them about that, like, or do they figure it out themselves? I feel like boys figure it out a lot quicker because it's an easier thing to figure out, I suppose. And they're always messing around anyway. Like it's like stop putting your hand down your pants. But well, you are the resident sexpert on Sex Rated. So do you think self-pleasure and satisfying sex play an important role in a fulfilling relationship?
Yeah, massively.
I do too. I really do.
I think we're very quick in relationships, and I've done this before, and I'm speaking from experience. It's really easy to start to kind of merge your sexual identity with your partner's, and it's really important to, as wonderful as partnered sex is and will always be, to think of your sexual identity as something that is your own. And it's 2 people coming together. Sometimes it's more than 2 people coming together. But we've got to be able to learn about ourselves before we can share that with other people. And I think solo sex and masturbation is a really important way of us knowing who we are before we get in relationships and kind of explore that as a team.
Yeah. And it's good to like make something a little bit different of your relationship if you've been in one for a long time. I don't know. Do you think it's hard for people to to say masturbation?
Yeah.
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 Because you girls are on the front line basically for me. So so I don't know, but you've had your fair share. You spoke about masturbation. What year was that? Was that 2022 or 2019?
Yes, last year.
Yeah, and you had loads of
And earlier
backlash.
this year. Yeah. So when I started working with sex brands about sex toys and things like that, the first thing I noticed was thousands of people unfollowed me, which obviously isn't the end of the world, but just from a mention on a story or showing a product on a story, instant people didn't want to know, unfollowed, done. Like, they're done with me, which is fine, up to them, obviously.
Yeah.
But further than that, I did get a lot of weird messages that people just hated it, and they obviously thought it was such an awful, shameful thing to be discussing and showing, that they were just so angry at me for doing it, and they let me know.
That's really bizarre. You have your own sex toy range, as we said, with Vush. What made you want to do that, to create your own sex toys?
It wasn't even my idea. The idea was given to me one day, and it took me a really long time to actually decide, like, do I want to do it? Am I brave enough for this? Because I wasn't sure. And we went through the design process, and by the end of it, I was like, yeah, this is a really great product. This is a really good message. And like, this is actually going to really help, especially because of the backlash I used to get when I just talk about sex toys in general. I was like, actually, we need this.
Yeah.
It's important to keep going with this message and not back down, even though people hated it. Some people.
Was it hard to do that, though, when you're getting so much backlash and getting all these messages? Was it hard to just keep going and pushing forward with the masturbation story?
Keep masturbating, guys.
Keep doing this.
Kind of. But also, I knew it's like the right thing. We need to be going in the right direction. And I wasn't keep like pushing because people hated it. Like, I just thought, no, people are resistant because it's new and it's scary, which is why we should keep talking about it. Keep going until it's not new and scary anymore.
So you've got your own line of sex toys?
Yeah.
Sold
I
out?
did.
Well done.
Out, yeah, they're very beautiful. Yeah.
When did you first start using sex toys?
I think I was a little bit later in life compared to what you might think. But I want to say I was like 24, 25.
Yeah.
When I had the confidence to go and buy them,
Yeah.
which I didn't have as a teenager for sure.
But as well, like, you don't really have the money when you're, certainly you don't want to have them when you're living at home, but you don't have the money to go and buy one.
You don't want to risk ordering them and having
Yeah, the
labels
ordering
say.
thing I think can be scary. I mean, I saved up and I bought a sex toy when I was 19.
Stop.
And I felt so, I like walked into Anna Summers. I think it took me a really long time to kind of learn how to orgasm on my own or with a partner. And I had this weird, I kind of blame and thank Sex and the City for this because I was obsessed with Sex and the City.
Oh, I love
and that
that.
rabbit episode where Charlotte gets obsessed with using a rabbit and there's like an intervention and
That
they steal
did
it.
teach us a lot,
But
actually.
so I'm glad it normalised it and it made me feel curious about it. But also I looked at that episode and was like, oh, okay, I feel broken because I haven't learned enough about my body yet.
Yeah.
So I'll buy a sex toy and that will just solve everything for me. So I went to Ann Summers, I bought like, in hindsight, like quite a ridiculous over-the-top sex toy for your first one, like a big purple rabbit. And I went home and used it and I was like, this isn't working for me.
No.
Like, why? This is too
Terrifying.
much. And so now I think I always encourage people to kind of start slow and steady. Like you don't need to bring out the big guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sex toys can be such a wonderful component to masturbation and pleasure, but there's also layers that you've got to do about discovering things around yourself.
Yeah.
Like a sex toy is a tool. It's not going to solve all your problems.
Yeah.
Although they're very pretty to
Yeah.
have on your nightstand.
What's your favourite sex toy?
Ooh, that's like asking me to pick a favourite child. I've got a couple of regulars that are like always the go-tos. Stainless steel sex toys.
Okay.
Because often we're really focused on like vibration and like clitoral suction toys now are really popular. But
A clitoral suction toy. I've
Oh my
never
God,
even
it's
heard
like
of
a
that.
tiny Hoover.
Stop.
It's
no.
magical. Okay, we'll sort you out.
No.
Your mind's going to be
going
going
home with a bag of stuff.
But I love these stainless steel toys that are really heavy
Yeah.
and like beautiful dildos that are quite curved and just
I feel like I've seen them.
yeah. It took me a while to buy one, and now I think I've got to say that's my favourite. But obviously, I love your
Whatever.
toys as
Yeah.
well.
What's your favourite? Is yours?
Mine is obviously the one that my face is on the box of, which is a beautiful rabbit with like the actual, not the rabbit arm, but the main internal arm pulsates.
Oh, okay.
It's stunning and it's beautiful and it's really nice. And that's the first time I really enjoyed rabbit
Yeah.
vibrators because, like you said, they're scary.
Yeah.
And I put it off for ages until I tried this one. I was like, actually, it's not that scary. And it's not big. It's not giant. It's
Yeah, we
like-
don't
Yeah.
need you. People always jump
don't need
to
the
like the
size.
biggest thing,
No.
and that's really size doesn't matter. Toys, penises, it applies to
Yeah.
everywhere.
Exactly. You could like for people starting out. What would you say is a good one to start out with? Like a little
you
bullet.
said, something vibration,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
small, just something that's not going to intimidate you, and you're not going to have to like work yourself up to like getting out the drawer. Just something
Yeah.
that's nice and small.
I'd say even more than a bullet, there are loads of brands do really nice kind of more pebble-shaped toys that
Oh,
are still
yeah.
small,
Yeah.
but it's giving you vibration. But bullets can be quite like
Pointy.
specific pinpoint vibration, and a more pebble-shaped, like they're often kind of soft
wondered
silicone.
what the pedal
It's-
ones were for.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes
More
sense.
and it
surface
spreads
area.
out the vibrations a little bit more. So
Yeah.
that's always my go-to first one. And lube. Lube is a
Yeah.
sex toy. Are
Yeah.
we counting it as that? I think that's
Yeah.
really essential.
So, okay, is there prep to using sex toys? Like, would you always have lube, or how do you prep?
I think so. Lube now is just like an essential part of my sex life. If that's
Yeah.
sex with myself or sex with other people as well. What do you think?
I don't use lube that much. I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm still a little bit scared of lube. I do use it,
Yeah.
but not for toys for myself. I don't find I like it, just doesn't help for me. But I also don't like the smells. Sometimes even the ones that
Yeah.
aren't scented, they have a really subtle clinical scent, and I smell it. I'm like, no, that's not sexy. I
Yeah.
need sexy smells only.
So why don't you bring out a sexy smelling lube?
That's a good idea.
Ruby, this is for you. Have you ever used sex toys during group sex?
I mean, yeah. If I'm using them in partnered sex, then if it's more than two, we might as well bring some toys in. Yeah, I have done. And again, I think it's group sex, if it's 3 people or more, is often very playful and exploratory. It's kind of less.
I feel like, is it quite chatty?
Oh yeah, it is quite
I'd love
chatty.
to know, honestly.
Yeah, because if you're like, hey, hello, like you guys have had enough, or is it like very
Yeah.
inclusive?
It's very inclusive. I mean, I think especially with like 3 or 4 people, there are these real moments of intensity, and it doesn't have to be as verbal. But the kind of more sex party, Roman orgy vibes that I've been in before. There's some people like, having a really intense time and not wanting to chat, but there's other people who are like having a little conversation, having a break, going to
Yeah.
get a glass of water, and it's nice. I think already if you're in an environment like that, that's
Yeah.
not something that people experience every day. Already it's such a sex positive space that I don't think if someone brought out a sex toy, anyone would be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, the shame,
Yeah, yeah,
get that away. So
What do you think this is?
my favourite terminology ever is the idea of like an acoustic wank, where you don't use a sex toy.
Yeah.
So acoustic, like just with your hands. So imagine like an acoustic orgy. It's like, sorry, no sex toys allowed. But just
Cute.
I don't want to be at that orgy.
So, Ruby, you use sex toys during group sex, but how do you keep that safe? Like, is there, like, you can't just be like throwing them around to everyone.
No. That's an important thing to say. We've got to have some sexual health, hygiene stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, cleaning toys in general is always really important. So cleaning them before and after use is ideal, because bacteria can kind of linger on them, or just if you've got a toy in a drawer, always
Yeah.
good to have give it a clean before you use it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then during sex, if it's an internal toy and it's being used on more than one person, putting a condom over it, like you would with a penis.
Oh, okay.
Like safe sex practices still apply. It doesn't have to be like,
Yeah.
literal flesh.
Okay.
And I think with group sex as well, a lot of the time it's a sort of bring your own sex toy vibe. Like
Okay.
you don't really want to be using toys across loads of different bodies. There can be a bit of that if there's conversations around sexual health testing and all of that, but it's just good to have that as a conversation.
Good advice.
Unsexy, but important.
Unsexy, but very
and
important.
then
but
you can get
yes.
to the sexy stuff.
Yeah. What's the weirdest sex toy you've ever used? Yours is gonna be good.
I'm ready for this.
Go,
one.
Ruby.
I mean, I've got some weird
God.
shit in my life. I've got a Sex Rated, the show that just came out. We had loads of really amazing sex toys on the show, and some of them I had to go on set and be like, guys, I don't think we can show this. It's going to freak people out. There was a butt plug that was like this big, and it was a strawberry. And it's an amazing object, but I was like, we can't. Sorry, we're already asking quite a lot of viewers. Let's not do that. But they gave me my favourite toy from the show was a corn on the cob. That's like it's huge.
Yeah.
And I can't say I've used it, but it's on my nightstand and it kind of makes me laugh every time I see it. And maybe one day I'll build up to it.
Is it a dildo?
It's a dildo, but it's like a silicone realistic corn on the cob. And so it's got like green on the bottom and then it's... Yeah.
I don't think I could take it seriously. I would not be able to be aroused by a corn on the cob.
But I do love that sex toys can make sex toys can be so silly as well.
Yeah.
Like there's all of these amazing like alien-esque like dildos. There are some really great companies that make them, and they're like fantastical objects. And you know, that's obviously not for everyone, and some people don't want a really silly sex toy. I like that there's a full range, but it's really good when you can see stuff.
Something for everyone.
Something for everyone.
Yeah.
What's your weirdest one?
It's not that weird.
What is
Probably
it?
just like a toothbrush. An electric
Oh,
one, obviously.
classic.
Everyone's
Hi.
first vibrator is their electric toothbrush. It is. But honestly,
you want-
I
do you watch
honestly
Sugar
have
Rush?
never done that.
That Sugar Rush was
Never
a game
done
changer.
a toothbrush, no.
Well, first time for everything.
Well, Vogue.
When I was a teenager, I lied to my mum and said that I'd lost my electric toothbrush so that she'd buy me a new
stronger
one.
one.
And then I had one from my nightstand and one for brushing my teeth.
That is so
I don't think I've ever told her that. So.
she knows.
Sorry, Mum. She
What-
knew.
Have you tried those? I got given one. I was doing this TV show during the summer. It's a sex toy, but like it's operated by somebody else, like a smart sex toy.
Yeah.
Have you tried them?
They're good. Yeah.
Are they?
I just think it's like date night perfect. Like they make anything spicy.
Yeah.
They're fun. I just think, like you said, it's fun and it's silly. There's a lot of silliness to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like them. Would recommend.
Would recommend. Okay, purchasing. Do you think sex toys have changed much over the years? They kind of, I feel like they all have the initial, like just a long dick, basically.
Yeah.
But then now, obviously, as technology goes on, you've got like the one that you can do the smart sex
They're
toy,
amazing
which does
now.
sound like a lot of fun. And then you've got the Pebble, which actually only until you describe that, like that makes sense as to why it's like that, and it's not such a concentrated thing. And supposedly, I heard if you try a sex toy on the tip of your nose, that's meant to be how you'll know if you
gosh.
like it.
It's for clitoral stimulation. It's quite a good way of kind of sensing, because you can feel not only the sensation on the tip of your nose, but also kind of how it like spreads out across your face.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy this. But yeah, I love how the sex toy industry has changed. I think for a long time, as you said, it was very much about replicating body parts and
Yeah.
being like, this is a penis, just
Yeah.
to like on its own, kind of disembodied, and kind of getting away from that and thinking about more abstract designs that are really built for bodies, for our bodies. And tech is always moving really fast, and I think the way that sex and tech combine is great.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more, and I think a lot more of it is kind of made by and for women, which is great. And I kind of wish that there was more variety for sex toys for men now.
Yeah.
We've got so much choice, like women and people with vaginas and vulvas, but for penises, there's still this thing of like, oh, well, your hand's fine,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And I wish, in a way, there's still so much stigma about sex toys for women, but there's not really a conversation at all for men.
No, because
And I
there
want
just
there to
isn't-
be.
There isn't that many like aimed at them.
Yeah, and there are some cool products.
Yeah.
But
like what?
well, like really amazing kind of silicone sleeves, because people think if you think sex toys for
Yeah.
men, you think fleshlight,
Yeah.
realistic. There's that out there, but actually there's these really futuristic like sleeves, and I've used them with partners before,
Yeah.
and they've been really amazing. And then also, not that many straight men are ready to hear this, but like the prostate is an amazing part of the body. I wish I had a prostate. It's
Yeah.
like the male G-spot, and it can be stimulated externally, like from the perineum, the bit between,
Oh.
like under the balls.
Yeah.
Like massaging that area or using a vibrator on that area can stimulate the prostate, but also like internal play. I want more straight men to explore inside their bums. They'd have a great time.
I think there's so much.
Do you hear that?
The world's not ready to hear it, but like honestly, please give it a go. I think you'll really enjoy
It's
it.
kind of a known thing, and I was watching Sex Education, you know, the TV show,
Mm-hmm.
and they had that on it. They had a whole thing about someone figuring that out, and I thought that was actually very interesting to do that. Sex toys in your relationship. So you said you use sex toys in your
Yes.
relationship.
Yeah.
So do you both do that? Yeah.
I do, yeah.
Do you do that?
I knew you were going to get me with that. Yes.
Another yay, full round. We will do.
No, I think they're really good, and like obviously, but I didn't realize how connective they can be. Like I thought of a sex toy as something you use on your own, or something you use maybe because you don't have a partner, which is awful, but obviously not true.
Yeah.
But when you use it with someone, like there's so much like connection there, and you can talk about it and talk about what you do like and you don't like, and then you get to talk about it afterwards, and then you get to look at new ones together, and like there's so much you can do with.
Like, do you use them a lot in relationship? Like, I wouldn't say it's like like an every time thing.
Yeah.
Nowhere kind of near that. Be
No.
very irregular. But maybe I have the wrong stuff.
I think
What do you use together?
honestly all sorts.
Yeah, I'd say like 75% of the time that I'm having partnered sex, I'm using sex toys.
Really?
But that also comes from having sex with women and with non-binary people. Like
Yeah.
I remember early on in my kind of sexual life, the men that I was dating feeling intimidated by sex toys and
Yeah.
feeling like there was a competition
Yeah.
and not seeing a sex toy as like a shared tool, like an electric toothbrush. Sorry to make
Yeah.
that analogy, but like no one's going to look at you and be like, your teeth are fake clean because you used an electric toothbrush, or like
Yeah.
if you bake a cake and you use like a mixer, no one's going to say that's not a real cake. Whereas if we're using sex toys, there's sometimes that inferiority or wanting to see them as like that is some kind of invalid pleasure. But I think having queer sex of all kinds, but sleeping with women, there's lots of fun things you can do without toys. But it was really refreshing just being like, oh yeah, this can be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you enjoy?
Yeah.
Show me how I can
Yeah.
use that on you. Like
Yeah.
that's a really fun thing. So anything that I would use by myself is something that I'm really open to using with partners, and
Yeah.
that can be really nice.
It's a really good way to like have better sex, I suppose, because if you're teaching somebody like, no, I don't like that, this is the
Yeah.
kind of thing I like.
Yeah.
It's really important to have that conversation as well with somebody. Otherwise, you're just going to have bad sex. Like you have to talk to each other to learn.
Yeah. Something I heard lots when I brought out the vibrator was women were scared to buy one because they didn't want to intimidate or upset their male partners.
Really?
And they really thought they would be upsetting them by bringing something into the bedroom, because it suggests, like you said, their inferiority, or like their penis isn't doing enough for them, or their hands aren't enough. And we went through lots of conversations, but just talking about how it's something to use together. It's
Yeah.
a sex aid. It's something to help. And if it doesn't help, you don't have to use it. But it's there to help both of you, both of your combined experience. And it's not as scary. Once you try it, you just always realise it's just not as scary. And it's
Yeah.
not intimidating.
Have you ever had any mishaps with a sex toy? I feel like you're a sex toy queen. I know you have.
Queen, but I've also had some mishaps. Yeah, I mean the main thing which hasn't happened. I've had near misses with this, but it's never gone as bad as it could have done.
Yeah.
But I really, really preach about flared bases for sex toys, because if you're doing
don't.
anything anal, like vaginas are brilliant and wonderful, and there is a clear stop off because we've got the cervix. It's like there's nowhere for something to go. People being like, oh God, like whole idea when you were a teenager of like tampons getting lost. It's like
Yeah.
it really can't go anywhere. However, anal, it can and the sphincter can really like has a habit of sucking
it.
things up.
Yeah.
So flared bases on anal toys is really, really important. Anything that's not designed for anal play should not be going in or around the anus.
Well, you hear those horror stories from doctors about things that people have put up there, and it's like, that should not be going near that.
But a lot of the time, I've got mates who are doctors who have got those. I think the worst one,
All doctors have those
like
stories.
Yeah.
that I've heard some real horror. I think it's too early in the day to talk about the bad ones. But like it's people. I think when there's more shame around pleasure,
Yeah.
particularly around exploring anal pleasure, it means people don't feel comfortable enough to seek out toys that are designed for that, and instead use like any old household object.
Yes.
And that's where you get into trouble and you wind up in
Yeah.
A&E. So it's
Things
about like,
break in there.
yeah.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. So that's biggest mishap, I think.
See, I've only
Losing
had
them.
The classic mishap, which I feel like everyone's done, is you lose a bullet.
Yeah.
And I remember this happening so well, and it was awful.
Like lose a bullet within your body.
Yeah, like in your vagina. It's
Oh my
horrible.
God.
My partner, a boyfriend, a long, long time ago, was using a bullet, and we weren't talking. There was no communication. And then all of a sudden, he just went, "Whoops."
Oh
And I
no.
thought, Christ, what's happened? And he went,
You're bionic.
on like a film. He went, "It's gone." I was like, "Eugene, it's gone." So then I was like, "Get it out." Tried to squat, wouldn't come out.
Oh,
Because it
no.
was on, it was vibrating. Oh, it's making me feel sick now. It was vibrating. I could feel it in my cervix. I could feel it inside me,
Yeah.
doing this really faint vibrating, because obviously it's deep inside you now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's going to live here. What do I do?
Oh my God.
It actually took about 5 minutes, which when it's inside you is a long time to get it out. And it was just a lot of squatting and awkward angles. And thank God I got it. But I was like, right, we're never doing this again. You don't know what you're doing, sir. That's not meant to go inside.
We're not talking.
Literally.
I've got to say, another big mishap, which I do very bad. I might be sex toy queen, but I'm really bad at remembering to charge them.
Oh, okay.
And having a wank and a toy dying on you.
dies.
That's a sad feeling.
I feel like you'd have backups.
I do, but but come on, I'm in
chose the
my
one you
flow.
want,
You've got to be able to charge and be ready for anything.
Does it help with your relationship using sex toys? Like, does it change it?
I think so. I think it has a really positive impact. Because again, it encourages that discussion and you get to talk about what you like and what you
Get to
don't.
add more stuff in as
Add
well.
more
Yeah.
stuff. Like, just try things together. Trying anything together, like new experiences, going new places. It's fun and exciting because you're doing it for the first time together.
Yeah.
Trying new toys together, I think it's just the same. It's a really bonding experience, I found.
Do you think discovering self-pleasure redefined couple sex?
Good question.
I know. I'm trying to think of my own answer for that.
I think it adds more play.
Yeah.
Fun.
And because I'm always really interested in the sexual scripts that we get. And I think porn informs this, but also just so many messages in our lives. When we think about couple sex, there's often something quite formulaic about it. And
Yeah.
sometimes in longer term relationships, you can get into a bit of a routine. You know what each
Same
other likes, and
way,
you're like,
exactly.
okay, I'll do this on you, and then you do,
Yeah.
and then blah, blah, okay, and then we're done. And anything that's going to positively disrupt that routine, I really, really welcome. And toys
Yeah.
can be a great thing in that. It's not the only way, but I think they can really change things up.
They are still a bit taboo, though, toys, like talking about them, saying you have them. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the shame we all grew up with. It just
Yeah.
sticks with us. It's so hard to shift. Like, I have a very... my dad's side of the family is Lebanese. My mum's side of the family is Scottish. Both cultures that do not encourage sex talk, self-pleasure talk, any form of sex positivity is not something I grew up with. So as an adult, I then had to learn about it. And it's through, like, things you find online, like resources, TV shows. Like, that's how you have to figure it out.
Yeah. How do you feel about how do your parents feel about you guys having such an open dialogue about sex toys and sex and masturbation online?
My mum was really proud of me for doing the sex toy collaboration, and she follows me on Instagram. So
Yeah.
the first time I even worked with a sex toy brand, she was like, "Oh, okay." And she said she told me she saw it, but then she swiped past to not watch it. And she was like, "It's
That's
fun."
fair enough. I think that there should be.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want my mom listening to this pod, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no.
she was really proud when I released it, and she was like, "Well done. I'm not going to buy one, but like."
Don't worry, Mom. I'll gift you one.
My dad didn't mention it, but they also didn't say anything bad, which kind of at this point is still a win in itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They were
definitely.
quietly supportive, which I was impressed by.
I think my parents are sort of unshockable at this point.
Yeah, you've really done your work.
But they're on board, and I guess I feel really grateful that I've been able to have those conversations. I would find it really hard to do my job without parents who were kind of ready to have some chats.
Yeah.
But also, I'm second generation Sri Lankan, and my mum was kind of like the bad immigrant daughter, where she was like, I'm going to go to art school and do all this weird stuff. So I think by the time me and my sibling came along, we were like, yeah, we're going to be weird too, sorry.
Yeah. She paved the way for you.
She did.
Some people, though, I feel I remember going with my friends and you go into sex toy shops and you're just kind of giggling away. But some people genuinely want one and just feel embarrassed to go and buy one. What would you say about people like that? I actually, to be honest, I'd probably go onto one of your pages and decide which one to get from there.
I think that's when I'd go online. I'd just spend my time researching stuff online and just order it, because now I think 99% of places that you order from, they all come in discreet packaging.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to arrive that's going to be obvious of what you've ordered.
This is a sex toy.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've seen especially back in the day, the brand of where you're ordering would be on the box, and now they've all figured out that people don't want to be ordering. So your roommates aren't going to see it, your parents aren't going to see it, and then you can just experiment in your own space, in your own time, in your own safe zone. Because I get it, going to a shop, as much as they're lovely and helpful, it's still a bit scary. The fear of bumping into someone when you're doing for what feels like something really scary.
Yeah.
But lots of sex toy companies have like really good customer service where you can talk to people, and there are some like more women's focused sex shops. If you're unsure of what you want, don't just panic and buy something. Like, really, this is an investment. No matter what you're spending, ask and get some advice and feedback, because you've got to think about kind of what sensations you enjoy already. If you're someone who like has a very sensitive clitoris and like doesn't like direct stimulation, it's got to be kind of like over the clitoral hood. That really tells you about the kind of toy that you're going to enjoy and the kind of toy you're definitely not going to enjoy.
Boots have sex toys.
Boots have really good sex toys.
Yeah, but isn't that amazing that like you can just go into Boots and get a sex toy?
It actually made me, when that first happened, it made me feel like genuinely emotional. I think I've cried because that's such a game changer as well. To not have that, oh God, I'm walking into a sex shop, to be able to be faced with that in Boots, which is a very familiar
it's
environment.
Really progressive. Though. It's like it's so available to more people to buy them. If you're just in Boots, just pop it in.
Picking up your shampoo, also like there's just no harm in it.
So that would be your advice: just take it at your own pace. Don't feel like you have to get straight into it, but just allow it to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun out there if and how you want to explore it, but there's no pressure to do it any other way other than how you want it.
Yeah. And with that, get your hands down your pants and have a great time. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you both so much. I loved that.
Yeah,
pleasure. Really lovely. Well, literally pleasure.
Pleasure, treasure. And that is the end of another fantastic episode of Taboo Talk. We really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much to my amazing guests for being very up for this conversation, Nellie London and Ruby Rare. And if you enjoyed this app, please do rate, review and subscribe. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, please do like, comment and subscribe because it really helps. Until next time.